Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we distill complex information into those crucial aha moments you need to feel truly well-informed.
And today, we're plunging into something really fundamental.
Yeah, a question that's, well, it's puzzled humanity forever, hasn't it? How can you actually find happiness?
Especially now, in a world that just feels so complex, sometimes contradictory.
And just, overwhelming, that feeling of being adrift, always playing catch-up, never quite reaching that real contentment, that feeling.
Oh, absolutely. It's this universal search, this quest for happiness. But modern life, wow, it definitely adds layers of challenge.
The constant comparisons, the information overload.
Right, the social media pressure, feeling like you never quite measure up. It can be a genuine struggle just to be content, let alone, thrive.
Totally. And that's exactly why today we're diving deep into a book that, honestly, it really shook up my own perspective. And I know it has for countless others, too.
Which one is it?
It's called The Courage to be Disliked. And look, this isn't just some fleeting self-help trend.
No, not at all.
It's a brilliant and actually really accessible look at the core ideas of Alfred Adler.
Ah, Adler.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who might not know, Adler is right up there, one of the giants in the world of psychology, alongside Freud and Jung, titans.
But his ideas often get less airtime, don't they? Which is a shame.
It really is.
That's very true. Adlerian psychology. Well, this might seem less flashy than Freudian stuff sometimes, but it offers these remarkably simple, yet really quite profound answers to that huge question: how can one be happy?
Simple but profound. I like that.
It's a very distinct school of thought. And as the book argues pretty persuasively, it might just hold the key to fundamentally changing your life. I mean, it certainly did for the authors, and I've seen it work wonders for people I've worked with.
And that right there is our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack Adler's really powerful, honestly liberating insights.
Make them easy to grasp.
Exactly. Easy, maybe even fun to understand. We want to get into the deeper meaning behind it all.
And hopefully leave you feeling not just, enlightened, but actually motivated.
Yeah.
Motivated to use these lessons in your own life, because this isn't just theory to talk about.
No, it's intensely practical. A path you can actually walk.
It genuinely can change things, just like it did for the authors when they first stumbled upon these ideas.
And to really get us started, it helps to know how the book itself is set up. It's clever.
Yeah, the dialogue format.
Exactly. It's this conversation, this kind of intellectual sparring match between a young guy who's super skeptical.
He voices all the doubts we have, right?
Totally. All the frustrations, the but what about questions. And he's talking with this wise, patient philosopher figure.
Which lets them explore everything really dynamically, break down the big ideas step by step.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we'll do today. Echo that structure a bit, invite you to join us in questioning some really deep-seated beliefs about, well, yourself, your past, your relationships.
Okay, let's get into it. Our first massive topic from The Courage to be Disliked. Well, brace yourself because it's pretty radical. The idea of denying trauma to take back control of your life. Whoa.
Yeah, it sounds provocative, doesn't it?
It really does. So the young man in the book, he starts off with this belief that I think a lot of us share deep down, that the world's just complicated and life only gets harder as you get older.
Right. He has this idea that kids are kind of shielded, blindfolded almost.
By parents, by society.
But then you grow up, the blindfold comes off, and bam, you see all the grim reality, the limitations, the things you can't do.
It's a very deterministic view, isn't it? Like your present is just the unavoidable result of your past.
Exactly. And he uses this really poignant example, doesn't he? His friend who's become a shut-in, hasn't left his room in years.
Yeah, and the young man immediately jumps to past trauma. Maybe his parents were difficult. Maybe he was bullied badly at school.
Something caused this. That's his whole stance. Before an effect, there's a cause. It's very linear thinking. Cause and effect, A leads to B.
And it makes a certain kind of sense on the surface. Like the book says, if you have a cold, you don't just want someone explaining how you caught it.
You want treatment now.
Right. So if the friend being a recluse is the effect, there must be some past cause that explains it. It feels logical. It's how we often approach problems, searching for that root cause.
And that's where Adler just takes a completely different path. It's revolutionary, really. He contrasts etiology, which is that study of causation.
The Freudian model, mostly. Past causes determine the present effect.
Right, which often leads to that feeling of, well, it's not my fault.
Right.
It kind of removes responsibility, denies free will in a way.
Gives you an out, almost. I am this way because X happened.
Precisely. but Adler champions teleology, the study of purpose or the goal.
Okay, purpose. How does that work?
Adler's radical idea is this. We are not determined by our experiences themselves. We're determined by the meaning we give them.
Wait, say that again? Not by the experiences?
But by the meaning we attach to them now. We determine our own lives based on the goal or purpose we set. He says very clearly, no experience is in itself a cause of our success or failure.
Whoa. Okay, so past experiences. They influence us, sure. They shape how we see things.
Absolutely. Strong influences. But they don't lock us in. They don't determine our present or future. It's the meaning we choose to give them right now that matters.
So life isn't just something that happens to you.
About in Adler's view, it's something you choose.
Yeah.
You decide how you live based on the goals you're aiming for, consciously or unconsciously.
Okay, applying that. It's tough. Let's go back to the recluse friend. Is Adler really saying that the friend doesn't want to go out deep down? And so he, creates the anxiety, the fear, even the physical stuff like migraines and stomach cramps?
Okay, this is a really important point. He's not saying the friend is faking it. The anxiety is real. The fear is real. The physical symptoms are absolutely real.
Okay, good, because that would feel like blaming the victim.
Right. Adler's point is that these very real symptoms serve a purpose. They help achieve a goal, even if it's an unconscious one.
And what goal could that possibly be? Staying miserable in his room.
Well, think about it. If he stays in his room, what happens? His parents worry constantly. They focus all their attention on him. They handle him with kid gloves. He remains special.
Whereas if he went outside...
He might just become, average, part of the faceless mass, as the book puts it. He'd lose that special attention. He'd have to face responsibilities, maybe perceived mediocrity.
So in a really strange, almost backward way, he chooses the reclusion, the unhappiness, because it achieves the goal of getting attention and avoiding the challenges outside.
That's the Adlerian interpretation. He chooses that lifestyle, maybe not fully consciously, but because it serves a purpose he perceives as beneficial, avoiding responsibility, staying special.
It flips the script completely. It's not, I can't go out because I'm anxious. It's, I create anxiety so I don't have to go out.
Exactly. Unhappiness becomes something we choose for ourselves, often as a life lie, to avoid taking responsibility or facing difficult tasks. It's not about blame. It's about showing the power you have, the agency.
That is a huge shift.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're choosing unhappiness, what about emotions like anger? They feel so automatic, so uncontrollable sometimes.
Another great example from the book, the young man yelling at the waiter who spilled coffee on him.
Right. He felt the anger was impulsive, unavoidable. Like the anger made him shout. It just boiled over.
That's how we usually think about it, isn't it? Anger as this force that takes over.
Yeah.
But the philosopher, using that teleological lens, looking for the purpose, says, hold on, the anger in that situation was a tool.
A tool? How?
What was the goal of shouting? To make the waiter submit, to make him listen right now, to assert dominance maybe?
So the shouting wasn't caused by the anger.
The anger was fabricated or chosen as the means to achieve the goal of submission quickly. Explaining calmly felt like too much trouble, or maybe less effective in the moment. Anger was the shortcut, the weapon.
Fabricated still sounds deliberate. Like he consciously decided, okay, time for anger. It felt impulsive to him.
It might not feel like a conscious choice step by step, but think about that brilliant anecdote the philosopher uses. The mother yelling at her daughter.
Oh yeah, the phone call.
Right, she's in a full rage, shouting. The phone rings, it's the teacher. Instantly she switches, calm, polite voice. Yes, hello. Hangs up and bam, right back to yelling at the daughter.
Wow, okay. That nails it.
It shows anger isn't this uncontrollable flood. It can be put away and taken out again when needed. The mother wasn't controlled by rage. She was using rage as a tool to overpower her daughter, to get her way. She chose it.
So anger is a means to an end, not something we're victims of. Man, this really turns things upside down. The idea that we're not just puppets of our past or our emotions.
It's incredibly empowering, isn't it? That's the core takeaway here. We're not dictated by emotions or the past. It's the meaning we give things now that matters.
Which means change is possible.
Absolutely. That's why Adlerian psychology is so optimistic. People can change right now. It's the Freudian etiology-focused view that can sometimes trap people, treating them like machines programmed by their past.
So understanding this, that you choose the meaning, you have a purpose behind your actions, that's the first step.
It's the crucial first step.
Yeah.
Seeing your own agency, asking what's the goal here instead of what caused this. It allows you to take courageous action towards a different lifestyle, reclaiming control.
Okay, powerful. But if we have this freedom, if we're not trapped by the past, why are so many of us still unhappy? That leads right into the next big Adlerian idea, doesn't it?
It does, and it's another that sounds huge at first. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems.
All of them. Seriously.
That's Adler's assertion. It permeates everything. The young man in the book admits he really dislikes himself, sees only his flaws, and he asks the philosopher, okay, if everything has a purpose, what's the goal of disliking myself? Surely that offers no advantage, right?
Uh-huh.
Only pain.
Yeah, my first reaction too, why would anyone choose self-dislike? It feels awful. Debilitating.
The philosopher's insight here is really sharp.
Yeah.
He suggests that self-dislike, constantly focusing on your shortcomings, it serves a purpose too.
Which is?
It's a strategy, a way to avoid getting hurt in relationships.
How does that work?
Think about it. If you already believe you're flawed, deficient, not good enough, and you stay in your shell making sure everyone knows your flaws,
So when someone snubs you or a relationship fails?
you have a ready-made excuse.
Yeah.
See? It's because of my shortcomings. If only I wasn't so shykeward and attractive, whatever, then I could be loved. Then I could succeed.
It's like a preemptive defense mechanism. If I decide I'm flawed first, then rejection doesn't sting as much, and I don't have to risk putting myself out there fully.
Exactly. It provides this kind of twisted safety. You avoid the direct, potentially more painful experience of rejection in the now by retreating into your perceived flaws. It's another lifeline to avoid the task of engaging with others.
That makes a scary amount of sense, like the example in the book, the student with the fear of blushing.
Yes. Her stated problem, this uncontrollable blushing, stops her from confessing her love to someone. She wants it cured so she can act. Seems simple, right? Cause and effect.
Blushing is the cause of inaction. Remove the cause.
But Adler flips it. From the teleological view, looking at the purpose, she needed the blushing.
Needed it. Why?
Because her real fear, the deeper fear, wasn't the blushing itself. It was the fear of being rejected by the man if she confessed.
Okay.
The blushing provided the perfect out. Oh, I can't tell him how I feel because I have this terrible blushing problem. It let her live in the safer realm of, if only.
If only I didn't blush, things could have worked out. She avoids the actual risk.
Precisely. Just like the recluse used anxiety to avoid going out, she used blushing to avoid the interpersonal task of potential rejection. The symptom becomes the excuse.
Mind blown. Okay, so the problem isn't the symptom, it's the underlying fear related to relationships, and the symptom is a strategy. And this backs up Adler's big claim. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems.
It's a cornerstone of his thought. He argues that if you were truly alone in the universe, like completely solitary, all your problems would vanish.
Because there'd be no one to compare yourself to, no one to judge you or reject you.
Exactly. Think about loneliness. It's not just about being physically alone. It's about feeling excluded from others, from society. You need other people to even feel lonely.
So even those deep internal feeling worries, like what's the meaning of life or am I good enough? Adler sees those as fundamentally tied to our relationships.
He does. He argues that even philosophical questions arise and are understood within our social context. The shadows of other people are always there, even in our private thoughts, because our sense of self is formed in relation to others.
Wow. Okay. And this relates to feelings of inferiority too, right? He makes distinction.
A crucial one. Everyone, Adler says, experiences a feeling of inferiority. It's just part of being human in a social world. It comes from comparing yourself to others. It's subjective, like Adler feeling short only because others were taller.
So that feeling itself isn't necessarily bad.
Not at all. In fact, it can be healthy. It can be a springboard for growth. I feel I'm not well educated,
So I'll study harder. Or I feel I'm not skilled at this.
so I'll practice more. That feeling motivates striving, improvement. That's good.
But then there's the inferiority complex. That's different.
Very different. The complex is when you use that feeling of inferiority as an excuse to avoid life's tasks.
So instead of, I'm not well educated, so I'll study.
I'm not well educated, so I can't possibly succeed in that field, or I'm too awkward, so I can't go to that party. It becomes a justification for inaction.
Another life lie. Blaming the perceived flaw instead of facing the challenge.
Exactly. Adler calls it apparent cause and effect.
Yeah.
You create a causal link that isn't really there, or you use a minor cause as a major excuse. It often implies there's some hidden, better, real me that's just being held back. If only I was an X, I'd be amazing.
Well, it stops you from actually doing the work.
Okay.
And the flip side, the superiority complex, the arrogant person.
What's fascinating is Adler saw the superiority complex as often being an inverted inferiority complex.
So people who brag constantly, who act like they're better than everyone.
They might actually lack deep down confidence. The boasting, the flaunting, the putting others down, it's often a way to compensate for their own strong feelings of inferiority. They're terrified no one will accept them as they are, so they desperately try to prove their worth through external shows of superiority.
It's a mask, a defense mechanism. That actually makes a lot of sense.
And he talks about a specific type, bragging about one's own misfortune.
Oh, interesting. How does that work?
It's when someone uses their past suffering, their hardships, their victimhood almost, to make themselves feel special and subtly control others.
Like the person who, if you try to offer advice or comfort, always says, oh, you just don't understand what I've been through.
Exactly. They use their suffering like a shield or even a weapon. By emphasizing how unique and terrible their situation is, they put themselves above others.
You couldn't possibly comprehend my pain, and make people around them feel worried, cautious, obligated.
It shuts down connection and keeps them in that special, albeit miserable, position.
Right. Adler noted, in our culture, weakness can be quite strong and powerful. It's a way to gain attention and control without engaging in healthy effort. It even applies to the shut-in friend we talked about, using misfortune to maintain parental focus and avoid responsibility.
So inferiority, superiority, it all comes back to our place among others, our interpersonal world, which means, okay, we need to figure out how to navigate these relationships better.
Yes. How do we engage without being constantly trapped by others' expectations or our fear of their judgment? Which leads us perfectly into the third major insight, and this one feels incredibly practical. Cultivating freedom through the separation of tasks.
This is really the core mechanism Adler offers for achieving genuine personal freedom in the midst of all these interpersonal dynamics.
It starts with that desire for recognition, right? We all want praise, validation.
It's deeply ingrained, often from childhood. Adler calls it reward and punishment education. We learn to behave appropriately to get the reward, praise, or avoid the punishment, rebuke.
Makes sense. Good job cleaning your room, get praised. Do something naughty, get told off. So as adults, we keep looking for that external validation. Like if I pick up litter at work and no one says thanks.
You might feel resentful or just stop doing it. Why bother if there's no reward, right?
Exactly.
And that is the trap of seeking recognition. If your actions are driven mainly by wanting praise, you're doing it for an external goal, not the task itself. And if you don't get praised, you get indignant or lose motivation.
Okay, so what's the alternative?
Adler puts it bluntly. We are not living to satisfy other people's expectations. And just as crucially, the reverse. Other people are not living to satisfy your expectations.
That hits hard. Because we do have expectations of others all the time.
We do. And that's where so many interpersonal problems come from, trying to control or manipulate each other through expectations.
But doesn't ignoring others' expectations sound really selfish? Like, just do whatever you want, don't care how it affects anyone. That sounds like chaos.
It's not about being selfish or ignoring others. Actually, Adler argues the opposite. If you're only concerned with how others judge you, always seeking recognition,
you end up living their life, not your own.
Exactly. You're constantly performing, people-pleasing, adapting. You throw away your authentic self. That's why understanding and applying the separation of tasks is so vital.
Okay, break that down. Separation of tasks. What does it mean practically? Give me an example, like the child studying thing.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Most parents feel instinctively, it's my task to make my child study.
Right.
It's for their own good.
Yep. Sounds about right. It comes from love, surely.
Adler would challenge that.
Yeah.
He'd say studying is fundamentally the child's task. When parents intervene, heavily nagging, forcing, punishing,
Yeah.
often the underlying motivation, even if unconscious, is egocentric. Maybe it's about the parent's image. What will people think? Or their need for control, or living vicariously.
And the child senses that, senses it's not purely for their good.
Often, yes. They sense the manipulation, the deception, and they resist. They might not know why, but they push back.
Okay, I can see that. It's uncomfortable, but I see it. So the parent's task isn't to make the child study.
Maybe the parent's task is to provide support, resources, encouragement. But the actual act of studying, the choice to engage with it, that's the child's.
And this applies beyond parenting, like in therapy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A therapist's task isn't to make the client change. It's to support the client's task of choosing to change their own lifestyle. The therapist can't force it. The choice and the work belong to the client.
Okay, so extending that. If I make a life choice, say, pursue a career my parents disapprove of, and it makes them sad or angry.
Their sadness, their anger, their judgment about your choice, according to Adler, that is their task, not yours.
Wow.
Your task is to choose the path you believe is best for you, to live authentically. How they feel about your choice is their responsibility to manage.
But that feels so cold or unfilial, as the book says. We're wired to care about how our choices affect loved ones. It feels wrong to just say, well, your feelings are your problem.
It's not about being callous. It's about clarifying where responsibility lies.
Yeah.
You are responsible for your choices, your life.
Yeah.
You can't control how others react emotionally. Trying to manage their feelings for them is an impossible burden, and it stops you from living your own life freely.
So it's actually liberating for both sides. I manage my choices, they manage their reaction.
That's the idea. It's incredibly difficult in practice, because it means letting go of the illusion that you can control how others feel, and accepting that living authentically might mean you will be disliked or disapproved of by some people.
Okay, let's try another common scenario. The awful boss. The typical thought is, I can't do my job well because my boss hates me, micromanages me, is unreasonable. That's etiology again, right? Blaming the external cause.
Classic life lie, Adler would say. The teleological reframe might be, I don't want to do this work, or I don't want to face my own perceived lack of skill, or I don't want the discomfort of confronting my boss,
So I create an awful boss in my mind as the perfect excuse. Or at least I focus only on their negative traits to justify my own inaction.
Exactly. The boss becomes the scapegoat.
So how does separation of tasks help here? What do you actually do?
The boss's bad temper, their unreasonable demands, their unfairness, that's their task, their behavior, their emotions. You can't control those.
Okay, so what's my task?
Your task is to face your work. Do your job with integrity. Address the tasks assigned to you without using the boss's behavior as an excuse for not performing or for being unhappy.
But what if the demands are unreasonable?
Then your task might involve communicating that, proposing alternatives, setting boundaries, or even deciding if this job is tenable. Those are your actions, your choices. Blaming the boss for your lack of progress or your unhappiness is avoiding your task and the potential conflict that comes with asserting yourself. It's about focusing on what you can control.
This definitely takes courage, which leads right to that really striking definition Adler gives.
Yes. Freedom is being disliked by other people.
It just stops you cold, that line. What does it really mean? Be a jerk.
No, not at all. It's not about trying to be disliked or being countlessly rebellious.
Okay.
It means being fundamentally unconcerned with how others judge you, not living in fear of disapproval, being willing to pay the potential price of not being liked or recognized by everyone in order to live authentically according to your principles.
Because you can't make people like you anyway.
Exactly. Their feelings, their opinions, whether they approve or disapprove, that's their task. Remember the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Trying to force or manipulate people into liking you is the opposite of freedom. It's exhausting.
Like the philosopher's own story with his father. He didn't change to get his father's approval.
Right. He changed because he decided to live according to these principles. He separated tasks. His father eventually coming around saying thank you. That was a consequence, maybe. But it wasn't the goal of the philosopher's change. He focused on his task.
That's real freedom. Acting from your own center, regardless of external validation. Wow. The courage to be disliked. That's the key.
It's the cornerstone of a genuinely free and ultimately happier life. Accepting you can't control others' views of you is incredibly liberating.
Okay, so once we grasp separating tasks and we accept that freedom might mean not everyone likes us, how do we actually build good relationships?
Right.
Because we still need them, right? If all problems are interpersonal.
We absolutely need connection. This isn't about becoming isolated hermits.
So what's next?
This brings us to the fourth major insight, building horizontal relationships and the power of encouragement.
Horizontal relationships. Okay.
And here, Adler throws another curveball at conventional wisdom. He argues one must not praise and one must not rebuke.
Hold on. Not praise. That seems crazy. Isn't praise essential for motivation? For building confidence, for kids, for employees, for anyone?
That's the immediate reaction, isn't it? The philosopher challenges the young man on this. How does it really feel to be praised with a good job?
Well, sometimes. Yeah, the young man says it can feel a bit like being talked down to, evaluated.
Exactly. Because praise often implies a hierarchy. Adler calls it the passing of judgment by a person of ability on a person of no ability. Like the mother praising her child for helping. but not her husband for doing the same task.
I see that. It sets up a power dynamic. The person praising is judging from above. The person praised is being assessed from below.
Right. And the unconscious goal behind praise, Adler suggests, is often manipulation to manipulate someone who has less ability than you to get them to keep doing what you want. It's not truly about equal respect.
So constantly seeking praise or giving it out, it shows you see relationships as vertical, as competitions.
That's the argument. Adler rejects all these vertical, hierarchical relationships. He proposes we strive for horizontal relationships.
Meaning
Relationships based on equality. People are equal but not the same.
Yeah.
Equal in fundamental worth and dignity, even if they differ in age, skills, roles, whatever.
Okay, so if good job is out because it's vertical,
Yeah.
what's the horizontal alternative? How do you show appreciation or encourage someone without that judgment vibe?
Simple gratitude. Think about a friend helping you move. You don't say, good job lifting.
No, you say, thanks so much, or wow, I really appreciate your help.
Exactly. That's horizontal. It's expressing genuine gratitude between equals. That, for Adler, is true encouragement.
So praise judgment, even if positive, it ties you to someone else's standards, but gratitude.
Gratitude expresses appreciation for the contribution. It allows the other person to feel, from their own perspective, I was helpful, I made a contribution, I am of use.
It's about fostering that internal sense of contribution, not relying on external judgment. That's a really key difference. Subtle, but huge.
It is, and it connects directly to building courage and self-worth. Adler believed it is only when a person is able to feel that he has worth that he can possess courage.
And where does that feeling of worth come from, if not praise?
It comes from feeling I am beneficial to the community. That sense of making a contribution to others, judged subjectively by yourself, not objectively by others saying you're good.
So it's about feeling useful, feeling like you matter to others.
Yes, and this ties self-acceptance, confidence in others, and contribution together into what Adler called community, feeling the ultimate goal, feeling connected and part of something larger.
Okay, but this raises a tough question. If worth comes from being useful, from contributing, what about people who can't contribute in obvious ways? Newborns, people with severe disabilities, the elderly with dementia, like the young man's grandfather. Does Adler say they have no worth? That sounds harsh.
It's a critical point, and Adler addresses it beautifully. He introduces the idea of worth on the level of being, not just the level of acts.
Worth in just existing.
Yes. He says, if you consider things at the level of being, we are of use to others and have worth just by being here. Think of the example of the mother in a car accident.
Right. Her family isn't grateful for what she does anymore. They're just profoundly grateful she's alive.
Her very existence, her being, provides immense value and psychological support to her loved ones. Her presence is her contribution.
That's a really powerful, compassionate shift. It means everyone has inherent worth just by existing, regardless of their ability to perform acts.
Exactly. So instead of judging ourselves or others purely on achievements or productivity, we start by accepting ourselves and others on that fundamental level of being.
This sounds like what Adler calls affirmative resignation.
Yes. It's not about giving up. It's about clearly seeing and accepting reality, accepting your incapable self right now, knowing you're not perfect. Maybe you're at 60% on something, and that's okay.
So accept the 60%.
Embrace it. And then from that place of acceptance, you can have the courage to work towards 70% or 80% if you choose, not out of self-hatred, but out of a desire for growth.
It reminds me of the serenity prayer. Accept what you can't change, courage for what you can.
Precisely. Self-acceptance gives you the courage to act because you know your fundamental worth isn't tied to the outcome of your actions. It's firm, but empowering.
And the self-acceptance, it's the foundation for trusting others, too, for that confidence in others you mentioned.
Yes. Adlerian confidence isn't naive belief that no one will ever hurt you. It's choosing to believe in others unconditionally, to trust them as comrades, even with the risk of being taken advantage of.
But why? Wouldn't that just set you up for pain? If you keep trusting someone who keeps betraying you.
Adler asks us to flip it. What happens if you constantly doubt others? Say you suspect your partner is cheating. You look for signs, you question everything.
You'll probably find evidence everywhere. Even if it's not real, you create suspicion.
Exactly. Your lack of confidence can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you approach with unconditional confidence, with fundamental trust, It's actually harder for people to betray that repeatedly without damaging their own sense of self.
So my own distrust can actually cause the untrustworthy behavior I fear.
Wow, it's a powerful dynamic. And the courage to risk being hurt, to choose confidence, that comes from self-acceptance, knowing your worth is in your being. If someone does take advantage, that's their task, their choice, their issue. You can feel sad, yes, but it doesn't destroy your core worth.
So you choose confidence not because people are perfect, but because you want to live in a world where you see others as comrades.
Exactly. It's a choice rooted in your desire for community feeling, made possible by self-acceptance.
Okay. Self-acceptance leads to confidence in others, which allows us to contribute without fear. And these three together create that sense of belonging, that it's okay to be here.
That's the harmony. When you accept yourself, you can trust others. When you trust others, you see them as comrades, not enemies. And when you see comrades, you feel safe, you belong, you have refuge in the community.
And people who don't have that, who see enemies everywhere, they lack self-acceptance and confidence in others, stuck in vertical thinking.
And this relates to lacking harmony of life. Adler points out people with neurotic lifestyles often use generalizations. Everyone hates me. Everything always goes wrong for me.
They see one negative part, but judge the whole of life by it. Like the Jewish anecdote, 10 people. 1 criticizes, 2 accept, 7 are neutral.
And the neurotic person focuses only on the one critic, ignoring the other 9, proving their life lie that everyone is against them.
Or like workaholics, another example of lacking harmony.
Definitely. They pour everything into one life task work, often to avoid other tasks like family, friendships, self-care. They seek their worth entirely in acts, achievements, productivity.
Which makes them incredibly vulnerable if they lose that work identity through retirement, illness, job loss.
Exactly. Because they haven't cultivated that sense of worth based on being. Harmony comes from engaging with all life's tasks in a balanced way.
This is all building towards something really profound, which brings us to the final core concept: living fully in the present and finding meaning.
Right. So many people, like the young man, see life as a line, climbing a mountain, heading towards a summit.
And most of life becomes just the journey, en route to somewhere else, a tentative life until you reach the goal.
Yeah, this linear view connects back to etiology. Everything is building towards a final outcome. And if you don't reach that specific summit, if something interrupts the journey,
your whole life feels like a failure. Incomplete. It's a stressful way to live, always feeling like you haven't arrived.
Adler offers a completely different image, a much more liberating one. Do not treat it as a line. Think of life as a series of dots.
Dots, not a line.
If you look closely, a line is just a series of connected dots. Life isn't some pre-drawn line. It's a sequence of moments, of nows.
So each moment, each dot, that's the real thing. It's not just preparation for the future.
Exactly. This present moment, the here and now, is life. It's not a rehearsal.
Adler says, live like you're dancing.
Yes. When you dance, you're not focused on getting to the end of the room. Each step, each movement is the point. The joy is in the process, the moment. Like a violinist isn't just practicing for the concert. They're living in each note.
So, shine a spotlight on the here and now. Focus intensely on this moment. Don't dimly light up the whole past and future.
That's the ideal. Live fully in the present.
If life is just disconnected dots, just moments, does it have any overall meaning? Isn't that kind of nihilistic? Empty?
That's the big question, isn't it? And Adler's answer is, again, quite radical. He says, life in general has no meaning.
Whoa. Okay, that sounds bleak.
But it's not. It's the opposite of bleak. It's a call to action. Because life is full of tragedies, randomness, things that seem meaningless. If we just stand by passively, we affirm that meaninglessness.
So, if life doesn't come with prepackaged meaning,
whatever meaning life has, Adler says, must be assigned to it by the individual. You create the meaning.
It's not discovered, it's assigned by us.
Yes. Think of the philosopher's grandfather, horribly burned in the war. He could have decided life was meaningless, cruel, people were enemies. That would be one meaning to assign.
But he didn't, because people offered him seats on the train.
Because of those small kindnesses, he chose to assign a different meaning. People are my comrades. The world is wonderful. Despite the hardship, he assigned that meaning. He chose his interpretation.
He transforms suffering into connection by choosing the meaning. That's incredible power.
That's the power we all have. And when you dance the moments, when you live fully and earnestly in the here and now, with acceptance, confidence in others, and contribution, the meaning of your life just emerges. You don't have to search for it. You live it into existence.
And happiness then isn't a future destination.
Yeah, it's right here, right now, found in feeling connected, feeling you contribute, feeling you belong.
We need to avoid that trap of trying to be special, either extra good or extra bad, just to get attention while avoiding real effort.
Yes. Adler talks about the courage to be normal, accepting being ordinary, just one person among many, and finding joy in the simple act of being, contributing, connecting right now.
As the philosopher says, here and now is shining brightly.
Exactly. Happiness is available now if we choose to see it, to live it.
What an absolutely incredible framework. Let's just quickly recap the journey we took. We started with that huge idea, denying trauma's determining power by focusing on purpose, on teleology, asking what's the goal, not what caused this, to reclaim control.
Right. Then we hit the core idea that all problems are fundamentally interpersonal relationship problems. Understanding inferiority feelings versus complexes, and how even self-dislike serves a protective, albeit unhelpful, goal.
Which led us to the practical key. Freedom through separation of tasks. Figuring out what's yours to handle and what's someone else's. Letting go of the need for external recognition and finding the courage to be disliked.
Which then opens the door to building healthy, horizontal relationships, moving past praise and rebuke to genuine encouragement and gratitude, finding our worth in contribution and just in being.
And finally, realizing life is a series of moments of dots to be lived fully, like dancing in the here and now, and that while life might not have inherent meaning, we have the incredible power to assign meaning ourselves, finding happiness through contribution and community feeling right now.
These ideas, they're not just interesting concepts. They are genuinely life-altering if you engage with them. They demand real courage, yes, because they challenge so much of what we're taught.
But they offer such a clear, empowering path, a way to live with intention, with joy, with freedom.
Absolutely. A blueprint for a different kind of life.
So for you listening, as you step out from this deep dive, maybe feeling like the young man, that the world and life can be simpler, what's one small, courageous step you can take right now, today?
How can you apply just one of these ideas? Maybe separating one small task, offering a genuine thank you instead of praise, accepting one small part of yourself.
How will you start to dance in your own moment, embrace that courage, find your worth, and choose the meaning you want to live? Something to think about.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the courage to be disliked.
Until next time.